into it while there are more than 30 people sitting here. So it's very important that you join the Slack channel because almost all the instructions that I'm going to talk about will be present here. So please join the OpenACC Slack channel. The channel is ACM_IITK, and there are 23 people who are there. But so register yourself with the email ID that you have got. What is the question, Dhrubaj? Who is Dhrubaj? So the format is going to be that we are going to have some lecture with respect to, so there are 3 labs that you are going to do. Each and every lab I will speak for around half an hour, and then you are supposed to go in the Slack channel, read the instruction and register yourself. I will show you how to do that, and then you start doing it. So the lectures will be recorded while the hands-on session later on will not be. So that's why I have kind of bifurcated it in that lecture now, but requesting everyone to join this channel right now. The next session is Introduction to OpenACC, and as the name says, it's an open standard for accelerator-based computing, right? So we are going to go deep into it. So there are 3 labs. The first lab is going to give you an introduction to OpenACC, and the topics which will be covered are listed here, which is what is OpenACC and why you should care about it, how is it different from the other programming models. We'll look at something called profiler-driven development, first step with OpenACC, and then where to get help, and then we'll move on to the second lab, right? So if you remember, I talked about 3 ways to programming, and the 3 ways, if you see, you can choose between libraries, compiler directives, and programming languages. Where OpenACC sits is somewhere here. If you see, libraries are easy to use and give you the most performance because some expert has actually spent time in making that particular library optimal. But it has some limitations, like you have to adhere to that APIs. Programming languages on the extreme right gives you the best performance and the most flexibility because you have control over each and everything, like which thread accesses which data at what point of time. But it takes somewhat more time to code it. And somewhere in between is compiler directives, which gives you kind of best of both the world. It is easy to use, and the second most important thing is it's performance portable, which we'll talk about in more details. So as I said, OpenACC is a standard. It provides you a directive-based approach, programming model, and it provides you performance portability, right? This is the most critical word that I'm using together, which means performance and portability, right? So generally there have been a requirement from different fields when heterogeneous computing became really famous, was that I want to write a software and I want to try it out on different hardware, right? Is there any programming model like that? There was not, which was very evident. There were some examples which were there, like OpenCL is one, Open Computing Language. It started with that objective. It didn't reach its destination, I would say, and it basically falls on the right-hand side, which is, it is a lower level language. It does not give you the flexibility of not to know the architecture. You need to still know all those lower level terms. While OpenACC is still easy to use because it is directive based. So it provides you performance portability is a key motto of OpenACC. If you see, OpenACC is a collection of majorly 3 pragmas, right? The first pragma is basically your parallel pragma, which tells you that I have to run something in parallel. What needs to be run in parallel? You have to figure that out on your own. So OpenACC is not an automatic compiler which will generate everything in parallel for you. You need to direct to the compiler. A developer basically directs to the compiler. Compiler, I feel this part, if I make it parallel, will give you more performance. Can you please convert it? Right? So it is developer assisted parallelism, not automatic parallelism. Then the second directive, so this is what we are going to cover in the first lab, which is a parallel directive. In the second lab, we are going to cover the data directive. If you remember, I said that your CPU and GPU has different memory, right? So how do you manage memory on the GPU and how do you manage memory on the CPU will be covered here. And the third directive which we'll cover in the third lab is optimization. How do you control the number of threads? How do you control the locality? All those kinds of things will be covered in the third lab. That's how our 3 lab lecture is there. Every half an hour I will show you how to do it and what is there in the lab. Later on you will jump into Linux Academy and you will start porting that code on your own into the Jupyter Notebook. I will show you a demo of that as well, right? First thing, as I said, OpenACC is the main thing is it should be easy. It is incremental in nature. That means I can keep on adding directives wherever I feel it's going to improve the performance. You can keep on adding them without sacrificing on anything. Whenever you feel that it is reducing the performance, it starts giving wrong results, you can either comment it out without changing your sequential code, or the second thing you can do is you can actually disable a flag which will just remove all your OpenACC pragmas, because pragmas are hints to the compiler. They can be ignored, right? You don't need to, basically your code doesn't get affected by it. Second thing, as I said, single source for different hardware architectures, right? So OpenACC started with that objective that once I write this code, I can rebuild this code for different hardwares, right? So if you see the code that you will write, you are going to run, in the beginning you are going to run on multi-cores, then the same code you are going to rebuild and run it on GPUs. As soon as you attach a GPU, it starts giving you more performance, but you don't have to change your code, right? So that's one of the key thing. If you see even the China's fastest supercomputer, which is not even a CPU, it's basically ASIC based supercomputer, it runs on OpenACC, right? It's not even a CPU. So different hardwares can actually adhere to different programming models, right? So you use OpenACC and you can run it on different hardwares. There are other examples where it has been run on other architectures as well. Sunway is another example. PEZI is another supercomputer where OpenACC also runs. So once you write your code, it can basically run on multiple hardwares, right? So, and there is a very low learning curve because you don't have to understand the hardware architecture. It's a very good starting point, I would say. If you are planning to convert your codes, you don't, and you already have a code, you don't need to start writing and converting it from scratch. You can make use of pragmas, see what kind of a benefit you get by profiling it, and then you can move on to the second level, which requires more parallelism or more efforts in terms of porting the code. It definitely provides you a good starting point, and in certain cases, OpenACC has proven to give the same performance as compared to handwritten optimized code. In fact, in our hackathons, we have seen many teams who came with optimized CUDA code. They ported it to OpenACC within 1 or 2 days, and they got the same performance as compared to hand optimized code, which they have been maintaining for few years, right? So OpenACC sometimes cannot, because the compilers are becoming more and more optimized to understand these loops, right? And they try to optimize the usage as much as possible, right? So this is the programmer will have a give a hint to the compiler, and the compiler parallelizes the code, right? And then it will actually offload that part which is written in that hash pragma ACC kernel scope onto the hardware that you have chosen, right? So OpenACC has become kind of a standard everywhere. More and more members are joining this community. If you look at India, even CDAC is part of the OpenACC standard committee. And so if you see, there is a survey which was done by Intersect 360, which lists the top 3 applications which consume, top 10 or 25 applications which consume most of the compute resources which are there in this world, right? All the supercomputing facility. And out of the top 5 applications, which are WASP, Gaussian is there, and I'm sorry, I forgot the third name. All these 3 applications are basically have been coded using OpenACC, right? So it is quite evident that most of the, and if you see the number of applications which have been increasing day on day, every year is quite huge. In India itself, I worked on at least 20 to 25 applications with different IITs and ISC and different institutes, triple ITs, on converting their codes onto OpenACC. We conduct annual hackathons. Our next hackathon, we just finished one. Our next hackathon in 2020 will be in September again, for which we will be opening the application soon. You can see the number of experts which are growing is increasing. Number of Slack members which are going to also are increasing. And PGI is a compiler that we are going to use, and the number of downloads for that is also increasing. So now coming back to the OpenACC, you have already done OpenMP, so it might not be something very different for you. It's a Pragma based thing, and the Pragma basically is either in C, C++ or Fortran. It gives instruction to the compiler on how to compile the code. It's a special instruction or hint to the compiler on what should I do for this particular piece of code, right? And it's quite evident, we say hash pragma ACC. So it's an instruction for OpenACC. What was it for OpenMP? OMP. So it's an instruction for OpenMP, right? So directives in Fortran, as I said, it's a special formatted command, and so ACC is the one which tells to the compiler that is a special instruction and what type of instruction it is. And then you are going to add some directives. We are going to look at these directives, like parallel is one directive, data is another directive, and then you will have some clauses to it which will provide you additional hints with respect to that directive. Very simple syntax. So the code that you are going to look at in this particular session, which you are going to do hands-on, is Laplace heat transfer. So people are not from this domain, don't get worried about it. It's very, very simple. It's nothing. Think of it that this is a metal plate on the right hand side and it's very cold. So I have initialized it to all zeros, and then you are heating this metal plate from the top, right? So then in the top, when you heat it, it gets hot, so it becomes, so from the top, when I say I am heating it, I am just initializing it to once, right? And then over time or over iteration, the metal plate will get heated like this, right? So you are going to run and then try to compute, and over time you are going to do this simulation to get this metal plate heated, and finally you converge and then come out of that loop. Now it might sound so fancy, but it's a very simple step which is called a Jacobi. What you are basically doing is that every pixel within that, every node, you are basically taking the neighboring 4 values, averaging them out, right? Top, bottom, left, right, average it out, okay? And then you will keep on doing this across time. Time is basically just a simple while loop. You're trying to simulate, right? You're not doing actual thing, you're simulating time. And you will keep on doing it till the time your convergence has reached, which means maybe the whole metal plate has got and your values are not changing basically, right? So your code looks something like this, that your outer loop is basically the number of maximum iterations or until you converge, right? You are going across the matrix elements which have been initialized to all zeros in the beginning. You are trying to calculate the new values by averaging the neighboring values, and then you are calculating the max error for convergence so that you come out when it is reached the convergence point. And if you see, you are calculating in something called as A new. You are taking the initial values in A, putting the new values in A new, and then in the last you are swapping this between A new to A. Now this is something which is very, very parallel in nature. You would have already observed everything is kind of independent of each other, and you can very well make it parallel. So even though this code is very simple, I just wanted to take you through the development cycle itself. And generally, if you are doing anything parallel, you should profile your code. You should always analyze your code to find the hotspots which are there, right? So the first step in any of your application will be always analyze your application. So in real world, you will not have 1 or 2 functions, you will have 20, 30, 40 functions. Now you need to see where you want to, you remember the 80-20 principle? You don't need to make everything parallel, right? So if you remember the Amdahl's law, just to put your perspective, if there are suppose 2 applications, 2 functions in my code, one function takes 50%, another function takes 50%. So if the whole application was taking 2 seconds, and one of them is amenable to parallelization, so I make that parallel. What is the maximum speed up that you can get? I make only one function parallel which is taking 50% of the time. What's the maximum speed up I can see in an application? Sorry? 2x, right? 50%, 50%. I made one parallel. Suppose I made it theoretically 0. By making it parallel, I had infinite number of cores. I just launched it by speed of light, and it makes it, but the other one will always be 1, right? Correct, right? So why I am saying this is you have to find the places which takes most of the time. I will always target a function which takes more time as compared to some function which takes 1 or 2% of the time. So you need to analyze, find those hotspots, right? And that is always going to be the thing. So for you, since this is a simple code, we have already done this analysis for you, but in the next code, you are going to see there are at least 10-15 functions. You will have to analyze the code there, right? So you will have to see how to make it work. So if you see this code, there are two main functions which are quite evident. One is calculate next, which is your averaging function, and swap function, which just replaces ANU with A, right? So this is a snapshot of a profiler, which is a UI profiler. Once you run your code or profile your code through this profiler, you can see here it may not be so evident, not so clear, but this field is called as CPU details. So it will tell you, even if it is not a GPU code, it will tell you. This profiler that we are using here is called as pgprof. It comes installed with the PGI compiler, and once I do that, if I see here, it is actually going to tell me that one particular function is taking 53% of time, the second function is taking 46% of the time. So where should I concentrate? On the top two functions, and may not be, the third function might not be even so relevant for me. So this kind of analysis is very, very important before you start parallelizing any of your code in case you are starting sequential, right? So this is the detailed snapshot of it. It shows once you click on this guy, it will show you the call hierarchy. I'm not sure if it is so much visible here, but it is telling that there is a file called a Laplace2D.c. Inside that there is a function called as calcnext. In that calcnext, line number 37 is taking so much of time. So it will actually tell you till that level on where it is taking time at the function level. And this kind of a hotspot analysis is very, very important in any parallel programming porting, right? So it is showing the same thing here again. You can in fact click on this line in the profiler and it will take you to the source code. So as soon as I click on it, it will actually come to this particular line and tell you that here, this line number in my source code. So you can start modifying it here itself. So it is so much, it will give you till that. So the tools have developed to a level that you don't need to apply your own ninja skills, right? The profilers have actually come to a state where it will give you hints. We have something called a guided analysis where you can keep on getting more and more feedback from the profiler. It will tell you this function. Inside this function, you are memory bound. So you are memory bound because you are doing this kind of operation. You are not using array of structure, you are using structure of array. It will keep on telling you these kinds of hints inside the tool itself. And you don't need to actually struggle with all those things. So the profilers have become that smart now. So let's come back to our OpenACC. The first pragma is hash pragma ACC parallel. So what does the parallel do? Basically, it will create within this particular part, it will create something called as n number of gangs, right? So gangs are basically something which run in parallel. Now these gangs can have, now you might be thinking, how is it related to threads, right? So internally these gangs can have one thread or many number of threads. It depends. Why it depends? I told you OpenACC runs across different kinds of hardware architecture. So if it is a CPU, one gang might have only one thread. If it is a GPU, one gang might have many number of threads inside it. So it depends, right? So when I declare it as parallel, what it guarantees you is that there are many gangs which will get created and all of them will run in parallel, but all of them will run this portion redundantly. The important word there is also redundantly. So if I have this loop inside and if I declare it as parallel, so everybody is going to run this loop at the same time. Is this good or bad? It is bad. It is similar to what you saw in the first example where I said everybody is doing the same operation. Ideally, what we should do is to split, right? If you don't split, everybody is just doing the same work. Everybody is outputting the same results from I equal to 0 to I equal to n. What we should be doing is splitting this loop. For that, we need to split this loop, for which I need to add one more pragma, which is called as hash pragma ACC loop. Loop is the one which tells that I have to split this loop across gangs. Okay? Now, there are multiple loops which can be inside, so you can decide which loop to split. Right? So, this one will actually now split your 0 to n will get split and all these threads will do it in parallel. Okay? So, this is again the snapshot which I showed you some time back as well. So, parallel directive is to mark a region which needs to run in parallel. It creates multiple gangs and it will have you can have multiple statements inside it. In fact, many of the times you don't need to write parallel and loop separately, you can just write them together. Hash pragma ACC parallel loop, right? The first one is more and more suitable when suppose if you had multiple loops inside, right? Inside that pragma you could have one for loop, second for loop, third for loop and all. So you can combine all of them under one hash pragma ACC parallel. But you can individually make every loop parallel by just combining both parallel and loop. So hash pragma ACC parallel loop will split this loop and run it in parallel. Okay. So there are some questions which I can take later on as well. So to just show you a snapshot, your code will look something like this. You're going to put a pragma, hash pragma ACC parallel loop, and there is some additional operator that we have put here which is called as reduction. Right? Why is there a need for reduction? Because of a variable called as ERR. ERR is basically shared across all the loops. Do you see this? While everybody A is having its own I and J, ERR is basically an operation which is called as a reduction operation. Right? If you remember the first slide which I showed you in the beginning, the example, what is a reduction operation? So you can have multiple elements. So what I am trying to do is I am trying to add this value 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. So basically how will the loop look like? So it will be like for I equal to 0, I is less than 8, I plus plus. So you will say suppose the value of this was sum equal to 0, sum plus equal to A of I. Right? So basically sum is the one which is actually storing all, adding up the values. This is called as a reduction operation. Can this operation be made parallel? Can it be made parallel? It can be made parallel via algorithm. So there is a different set of algorithms which are called a divide and conquer algorithms, and this kind of falls in that particular strategy. What I can do is I can launch one thread 1 here, I can launch thread 2 here, thread 3 here, thread 4 here, right? And then this will be say sum 1. This should store the result in sum 2, sum 3 and then sum 4. Then again I will launch, I will synchronize here, then I will launch 2 more threads, correct? And then finally 1 thread. What are these kinds of algorithms called as? Divide and conquer. You guys used this term some time back. How many steps will you require? Log n. Now if you are to write this code manually, you will first launch the thread, so you will have a loop here for log n steps. Every time what you will do is you will do this, then synchronize, because everybody needs to see this value. Then again you will launch it and then you will synchronize. Correct? Otherwise your results is going to be wrong. Now this is something, the good part is the compiler already knows this for you. And in fact you can have that reduction and say I am doing reduction of type max. So this is doing a max operation. What is this operation? This is a sum operation. Similarly here we are trying to find max. So if you see it's a max operation on what variable name? ERR variable name. Compilers are so smart that if you remove that, it will still generate reduction. So you can try that out. Don't give reduction and it will still generate reduction for you, because the compiler would have seen this code and it will say you have told me to make it parallel, but I believe there is reduction here, so let me generate reduction. I will show you that output as well. Right? So reduction clause takes many values and reduces them to a single value. Right? So I already showed you one example here of plus equal to. You may have multiple. So here I am doing reduction on this temp variable. So this is just an example which reduces into one global result. There are different kinds of operators, plus, star, max, min, and there are bit operators as well. So these are the different kinds of operators which exist. Now for your session, we are going to use a compiler which is called as PGI compiler. PGI compiler is really famous, especially in the Fortran world, but it is very used when you are talking about OpenACC. PGI is the one which is leading this. GCC also has the implementation of OpenACC. You can very well do the same thing in GCC, but PGI is a free compiler and you can download it anytime and start using it. It's not charged at all, so you can use it. So the C compiler is PGCC, C++ is PGC++, and the Fortran is PG Fortran. So the compile code, you have to use these operators, basically the compilers, right? Compiler. Fast flag, if you are a GCC expert, you will know -O3 is the flag for getting the best optimization. Similarly, you can use the -fast flag to get the optimization from the PGI compiler. So if you were to compile your code, this is how you will compile your code. You don't need to worry about that. All these things will be present in your Jupyter notebook. Once, the first step, okay, so I'm going to give you a mantra. The first step is always to analyze the code and get the hotspots. Second step is to parallelize it. How to make it parallel? Hash pragma ACC parallel loop. That's your second step. The third step is to make sure that the compiler understood your hint, because as I said, these are hints to the compiler. Compiler can ignore your hints. Under what conditions it can ignore? If you did some mistake in writing pragmas, if it was a wrong pragma, obviously first. Second is, compiler, if it sees that there is a dependency in your code within the loops, it will not make it parallel. So all those things compilers can actually ignore. So your third most important step is to use this flag called as minfo. Minfo flag basically instructs to the compiler, please tell me what did you do with that pragma. Okay, please tell me what did you do with that pragma. If you are not getting good results, if you are not getting good performance, the first thing you have to do is to look at minfo flag. So minfo equal to Axel will give you only the information related to OpenACC region, accelerator region. If you give opt or all will give you all kinds of results, which will give you many more things which it has done to your sequential code as well. Like it might have done fmad operation to fuse, multiply, add. It might have changed your loop sequences. It can do multiple things at the sequential level itself. If you want to know all those, you can use all flag. Right now, for this session, our concentration is Accel, because we are going to port this code onto a accelerator. Okay, so you just add like this -minfo equal to all. We have covered 3 steps: profiling, adding pragma. Third one is minfo flag to check that whatever you have done is correct or wrong. Right? Now comes the 4th step. So it's a 4-step process. The 4th one is the most important one, which almost everybody forgets. I said OpenACC runs on multiple hardware, right? So when I give Pragma at compile time, it will not know which hardware to compile that code for. So I have to tell it, if I have a multi-core, I have to tell it compile it for multi-core. If it's a GPU, I have to tell compile it for Tesla, which is NVIDIA GPU. If it's another hardware, I have to tell that as well. So this is the flag that you need to give while compilation, -TA. TA stands for target architecture, okay? Target architecture. So if I give -TA equal to multi-core, your code will start running on multiple threads on multiple cores. If I give -TA equal to Tesla :manage, it will start running on NVIDIA GPUs, because NVIDIA server GPUs are called as Tesla cards. So that's why it's called as Tesla. -TA equal to Tesla, and :managed is basically for data movement. Currently you can assume that you know this part and move ahead with it. We'll cover this part in the next session, in the next lab more. Right now you are not going to worry about the data transfer between CPU and GPU. Okay? So -TA equal to Tesla will target NVIDIA GPUs, and manage will basically manage the memory of data transfers. So that's what your overall loop looks like. So just to give you a snapshot example, if you give -TA equal to multi-core, how do you make sense of this output? What it is telling you is, at line number 63 in your Laplace uvm.c file, in main function, in line number 63, I created a multi-core code. Okay? If it doesn't tell that, that means your code got either ignored or there was some mistake inside it. Okay? So when you're going to run this code, you're going to see around 3x to 4x speed up on the Laplace code that you're working on. When you run it, when you compile it for Tesla equal to manage, -TA equal to Tesla :managed, if you see now it has changed. It is telling I have generated what code? Tesla code, right? This is very, very important, and if you can see, it has already generated copy in and copy out for you, which you can ignore for now, because we are going to cover the data clauses in the next lab. But the most important clause for you here is this part. Okay? So as soon as you just recompile the code with -TA equal to Tesla and start running on a, say, a Volta card, it will start giving you much more speed up, right? Recompile and rerun on a different hardware, right? So it will start giving you that performance. To just finish the part, so what did we do? We learned what is OpenACC. We talked about profile-driven development. The main pragma that we have learned in this session is parallel loop. And the next lecture, we are going to look at managing your data with OpenACC. Okay? Any questions? Okay, so OpenCL was Khronos Group, who is also the one responsible for creating a standard for graphics language, which is called as OpenGL. And now Vulkan is the new one which is there. So Khronos Group is basically the one which came out with this standard. It's a committee which also has different vendors, like NVIDIA is also part of it, AMD is part of it. All of them come together to define a standard, right? So they came out with this standard sometime back, many years back. And the reason for that was that if you write a code using OpenCL, it will run across multiple hardwares. Now OpenCL falls in that third line, vertical, that I told you. It's a lower level API. So you need to understand the whole syntax and all. It's not pragma based, right? OpenCL is really, really popular in the embedded side of it, while OpenCL is not so much popular in the server side of it. And it has shown some success in performance portability, but it is not so much evident with any of these codes which exist at this time, which are the popular codes. OpenACC is again open standard. It's again a consortium of people and who define the standard specification, and it is falls in this middle layer, middle bucket, where it is directive based. It provides you the same thing because the compiler have grown to a level where you can actually start doing all those things. So it falls in the second bucket. Is it clear? So even NVIDIA supports OpenCL, It's a lower level language, but it's very similar to CUDA. C. It's almost equivalent. There is 1:1 thing between CUDA C and OpenCL there. No. Yeah. So if you know CUDA already, gang is equivalent to block. Is equal to block. No, the compiler actually generates that interleaving for you, optimal interleaving for you. But if you have written a code in a way, the loop has been written in a way that, so right now it is going sequentially, right? If you just do another kind of interleaving for getting the best performance, maybe it will not give you good performance there. So you can change your sequential code and OpenACC can then give you better performance.
So in a heterogeneous system, like if I have a part which I want to go up to the CPU, which is binary code, and I have a part which I want to go to my
So in OpenACC standard, you cannot target multiple devices because at compile time you are telling only one device. So it can only target one. In case you want to do that, you can combine OpenMP with OpenACC. So you can have both pragmas inside. Somewhere you can have OpenMP and somewhere you can have OpenACC if you want. In fact, sometimes if you look at the more, I'm not covering those parts, in OpenACC optimizations, we will actually see that we use OpenMP outside to launch multiple, when you are doing multi-GPU programming, when you have multiple GPUs, you can actually launch multiple CPU threads using OpenMP, each thread accessing one GPU. So you can combine them as well. But OpenACC standard does not allow multiple devices at the same time. The concept of accelerator is defined at compile time, which is only one device. So based on what do you give? If you give -TA equal to Tesla, it will generate a CUDA specific code where you have two levels. You can look at it, it can generate two types of code and you can tell it to the compiler. Like one is that it will show you C code. So it will generate a CUDA C code. So you can see how it generated the CUDA C code, how it wrote that. So it converts that into CUDA C. Or it can bypass that and directly give you assembly level code which is called as PTX. PTX is our intermediate language which it can directly jump to. So you can even look at assembly level if you want to look at CUDA. Same thing applies for your other devices as well. So you can look at the intermediate level of what it generated. Now it depends on compiler to compiler, do they give this flexibility or not. PGI does, other compiler might not. It's part of the compiler who is implementing that, right? So whether it shows me the intermediate code or not is not a standard thing. It is an implementation thing. Standard does not ever specify implementation part. It only specifies what needs to be done, not how it needs to be done, right? So compiler does not say that you have to show the intermediate level at all. Yes, it has to be, otherwise how will it run? So whatever you put under hash pragma ACC parallel loop will go on GPU if you have chosen GPU. Okay, I'll just show an example maybe. So, okay, so your while loop here is running on the CPU. It doesn't have a pragma. As soon as it hit here, it will offload this, it will be a function which will be called on the GPU. These instructions will be called on the GPU. As soon as you come out of this bracket here, it will again come back to the CPU. Then again it is going to call the GPU. That's how your code will look like. Your main function that you write int main will always start from CPU, and then it will, in between where it hits hash pragma, this part will run on the GPU or whatever target architecture you have chosen. Exactly, it has to be specific to that architecture, right? Otherwise it cannot even understand how to run it. It's an architecture. If it's an x86, it needs to understand x86. If it is ARM, it needs to understand ARM. If it is GPU, it needs to understand PTX. No, there is no implicit barrier here. It will, okay. So by default, this statement, it will actually, it's kind of true. There is a barrier from a CPU point of view that after it finishes, it will wait till all the threads are finished. If you do want to make it not like that, you can add a clause called as async. We have not covered that part. It's more for the third lab. Okay, so I will keep on answering these questions later on. Now, we'll move on to the hands-on session. So everybody needs to be on the Slack channel. As I said, you would have received a particular instruction on your Slack channel, which is called as labs instruction. So if you just open that labs instruction, you can see the steps which are required. So the first thing that you have to do is, so this session that we are doing is on Amazon Cloud. For the first lab, as in the first 3 labs, we are going to use K80 GPU, which is a Kepler GPU, which is an older architecture, and it is hosted by Linux Academy. Linux Academy is our partner which actually launches it on Amazon for us, and we have hosted all our containers there. So you have to go to linuxacademy.com, then you have to sign up. In this sign up, please make sure you choose the free plan. If you mix this up, then you might not even get the credits for doing this session. Please make sure you start on time, because every lab is 1 hour. Your credits, so you would by default get 35 credits for 3 labs, 4 labs that we are going to do. Each lab is 5 credits. So make sure you are connected to the internet properly. If it gets disconnected in between, your credits will go waste. Make sure your laptop is charged so that it does not shut down in between, and so you use it optimally, right? So you have to choose the free plan, and then you have to fill out the details. After you say join, basically, and you can get started, and you will get a mail for in your whatever email ID you have given for verification. You can do that, and then once you are done, I am going to post a link in your Slack channel, which is the link to the first lab. Once I do that, you will get a page like this, right? This page is for introduction to OpenACC, and there will be a button here called as start activity. You can click on it. After some time, you will get a IP of the machine, virtual machine that has been created for you. Once you can copy that IP, paste it on a new tab window of your Chrome, on your Chrome. Please use Chrome as much as possible. Firefox has some issues. So then you have to say start here. I will start showing that, but I request everyone to at least reach this stage, right? You click on start activity when I tell you to click, okay? So please reach this stage and then we'll continue.